Welcome to the post-show debrief. Quite a show it was. What would we call this? The wake of the State of the Union address. Man, oh man, people have opinions on this president and his new centrist positioning, and most don't think too much of the idea that he's a centrist. This president's very likable. But he's not so likable that most people will buy into him being a centrist. It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the months, and indeed the time between now and Election Day 2012. Katie Couric, ABC, CBS, NBC, all using the expression Reaganesque about this president and his delivery of the State of the Union. Pure nonsense. This president can't come close to Ronald Reagan as a speaker and a communicator, an effective communicator. He's very good at reading a teleprompter and delivering his speech, and that's fine. But to suggest anything that he did was Reaganesque last night is patently absurd. But so much of what is happening in politics and media now is the idea that this president could stand up for the joint session of Congress and the American people and say that he wants to see tremendous investment in infrastructure, education, and at the same time call for a freeze on federal spending. By the way, does anybody remember he did exactly the same thing, well, not exactly, but close to the same thing, in his State of the Union address a year ago? I mean, this is nonsense. And the national media doesn't seem to have sufficient either short-term memory or institutional memory to deal with it. We had today, I'm pleased to say on the show, John Merline, who's the opinion editor of AOL News. We had him on to talk about, are you better off now than 2 years ago, the subject of a column he had done recently. And I have to tell you, it's startling. We put the column up on Dobbs.com, so check it out to see the number of gauges that over the past 2 years in our economy and our quality of life that have deteriorated. It's really quite, it's quite dramatic. And you really should take note of it, if I may suggest. We had Joe Bastardi on to talk about La Nina, to talk about solar minimum and what in the world is happening to our winter weather. It's getting colder, it's getting snowier, and it's getting icier. That much I knew. He explained that we're going to get even more of it over the course of the next several weeks for this winter, which is turning into be one of the more severe winters that we've had over the course of the last 20 years. We're going to have weather to talk about. We're going to have a State of the Union to talk about. And we're going to have a campaign to talk about, because this president, just after saying in the State of the Union address that, you know, these issues are just bigger than politics and there are lots of things more important than politics, it was announced today that his deputy chief of staff, Jim Messina, is leaving the White House Friday to become his campaign manager for 2012. And after all of that talk about constraining the federal government, it was reported today that the federal budget deficit for fiscal 2011 will be, are you ready, $1.5 trillion. I'm sure it's just a coincidence that that number came out today rather than yesterday ahead of the president's speech. Aren't you? Thanks for being with us for the post-show debrief. We'll see you next on the radio.